The member for Mitchell.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister, and I refer the Prime Minister to his announcement yesterday of a budget deficit. Prime Minister, can you advise the House how much of this new Labor debt will be used to bail out the failed New South Wales state Labor government this weekend?
The Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I say to the honourable member who's just asked the question that again we are faced with some serious economic challenges in the country for jobs and for families, and his interest following the direction of his political masters is simply again to engage in political point scoring. I think the people of Australia would want something more of their representatives other than that sort of intervention. Mr Speaker, this government, when it comes to the reform of the Federation, believes that the responsible course of action is to invest in education, to invest in schools, to invest in TAFE, to invest in universities, to make sure that we have an education system designed for the 21st century. And I would say to those opposite that had they bothered to deploy the proceeds of the mining boom over the previous half-decade and more, they could have invested in the future productive capacity of the economy. And I would draw the honourable members who howl their interjections to the report recently released by Access Economics, which said exactly the same. Secondly, they could have done something about the nation's infrastructure. They could have done something about water infrastructure. They could have done something about broadband. They could have done something about the other needs in ports.
The member for McCullough. The Prime Minister will resume his seat. The member for McCullough on a point of order.
Mr Speaker, on the point of relevance, the question asked was why is the Prime Minister associating himself with the failed state of New South Wales?
The member for McCullough will resume her seat. The Prime Minister is responding to the question. The Prime Minister.
Rather than invest in the needs of communities across the country for the future of education, for the future of infrastructure, and as the Minister for Small Business just indicated, taking action to create a seamless national economy for the benefit of small business, instead they did nothing. They sat there and played politics in government as they play politics in opposition. Mr Speaker, the other part of the honourable member's question goes to the question of a temporary deficit. I'll draw the honourable member's attention to what actually constitutes the elements of a budget. Firstly, on the revenue side, the honourable member's attention should be drawn to the fact that because of the global financial crisis, $40 billion has been sliced off the government's revenues. $40 billion, as has happened across much of the OECD. I would draw the honourable member's attention, for example, to what is happening in other economies. The Conservative government of the United States running a 4.6% of GDP deficit, the Conservative government of France running a 3.9% of GDP deficit, the Conservative government of Germany running a 0.8% of GDP deficit, the Conservative government of Italy running a 2.9% of GDP deficit, the Conservative government of Japan.
Prime Minister will resume his seat. The Prime Minister will resume his seat. The Manager of Opposition. I wasn't sure whether the Manager of Opposition Business was deferring. The Manager of Opposition Business on a point of order.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. It goes to relevance. The Prime Minister was asked about New South Wales, not China, not Germany, not the United Kingdom, not the United States.
Manager of Opposition Business will resume his seat. The question had a preamble relating to yesterday's statement. The Prime Minister.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. And the Conservative government of Japan running a deficit of 3.9% of GDP. Mr Speaker, these are the facts about what's happening around the world as individual governments seek to respond to a global financial crisis. Facts which those opposite find personally confronting because they're politically inconvenient. These are the inconvenient truths. Secondly, when it comes to revenues, those opposite need to accept the reality that $40 billion have been sliced off the government's revenues across the forward estimates because of the global financial crisis, and that's happened right across the developed world. Thirdly, on the question of outlays, what did this government do in its preparation of the last budget? Through the activity of the Minister for Finance and through the Expenditure Review Committee, sliced $5 billion worth of excessive expenditures by way of a savings program which he delivered in the context of the budget which the Treasurer announced in May of this year. $5 billion. On top of that, that has given us the capacity to bring in the stimulus package that we announced in October, $10.4 billion. In addition to that, to make forward provision for the auto plan of $6.2 billion and to make forward provision for various other stimulus packages which I've already announced. But I would say this to those opposite. as they seek to provide a lecture on the question of fiscal probity. Have those opposite bothered to cost those promises which they've stuck out there in the public domain? Ready-to-mix drinks, luxury car tax, crude oil excise condensate. Whatever the position may now be...
The Prime Minister resume his seat. The member for Mitchell on a point of order.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. My question was in relation to why the federal government is bailing out the New South Wales state government, not in relation to Liberal Party policy.
The member will resume his seat. I remind the Prime Minister that his response must be related to the matters in the question. Prime Minister.
And, Mr Speaker, in responding to the question, the honourable member asked a question about the matter of deficits, and I'm going to the question of how you construct a budget on the revenue side and on the expenditure side, and therefore the proposal is also being put opposite. Those opposite have said they support the economic security strategy.
The Prime Minister will resume his seat. Order. The member for McCullough on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. On relevance, the Prime Minister was asked a question about New South Wales. If he wants to add to his answer concerning deficits, he may do so at the end of question time.
The member for McCullough will resume her seat. The difficulty of the precedents of this House is that the matter that was contained in the preamble in the run-up to other things that people might think are a Pacific question are open to response. And the start of the question referred to the statement of the Prime Minister yesterday and referred to the mention of deficit in that statement. And in that regard, if the Prime Minister is relating his response to that aspect, based on the precedents of this House, it is in order. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. And therefore, when it comes to looking at the way in which you put together outlays, we have a capacity, as we've indicated through the budget, to provide stimulus. Those opposite in providing a lesson on fiscal probity need to answer these questions. Do they support the economic security strategy? Their formal position is yes, I believe. Does anyone oppose the economic security strategy over there?
Senator Joyce.
Therefore,
respond to the question.
Let's give that a big tick, because that's what they've said. The car plan, I think they support. Anyone oppose the car plan over there?
Order.
Right.
Order. The Prime Minister will resume his seat. Order. 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 The member for North Sydney will just resume his seat till the House comes to order. My degree of tranquillity might be lowering and my capacity to remain here for the whole afternoon might be lessening, but I think that it would assist the House if the House came to order. The Manager of Opposition Business on a point of order.
Relevance, Mr Speaker.
Order. The Prime Minister will respond to the question in the context of the comments that I've made in response to other points of order. The Prime Minister.
And I refer again to the honourable member's question as it related to the statement I made yesterday and its reference to the management of budgets. Because if those opposites support the three measures that I've just referred to, or the third one, of course, is the local government infrastructure package. Anyone over there oppose the $300 million for local infrastructure? I don't think so. So therefore, they support those three sets of measures. That's right, I'm sorry, the member for Cook is an exception.
Order.
So we support those three measures, put them in together, that's a reasonable amount of money. Then you go to their promises, which they've been putting out all year. Ready-to-mix drinks, luxury car tax, crude oil excise condensate, Medicare levy surcharge, heavy vehicles road user charge, dental treatment offset, Commonwealth Seniors Health Card, family trust. Now, this is the interesting one, the 5-cent reduction in petrol excise. What stage does that have these days? Not sure. Investing in our schools, lower lakes, increased single rate of the pension.
Order.
Now, put all those together, is it 5 billion, 10, 15, 20, could be more. Can I say to those opposite, as if they are seriously putting forward an argument about fiscal rectitude, first of all, put together what you have supported by way of government measures to stimulate the economy in terms of your formal press releases, and the three that I've just mentioned you formally have. Secondly, put together the $5, $10, $15 to $20 billion worth of outlays contained in the promises you have made to the Australian people. Put all that together, you end up with a very interesting set of fiscal circumstances indeed. So I'd say to the honourable member for Mitchell, as he puts this question to the House on how budgets are put together, that he should have a long look at the fiscal probity which is contained in the promises being put out by the Liberal Party in opposition. They played politics and spent like drunken sailors in government. They are playing politics and spending like drunken sailors in opposition as well.
Order.